Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to this place of irrepressible hope. In celebration of Earth Day, today's service is presented by the Green Sanctuary Committee. Our minister, Beth Johnson, was going to lead the service, but she traveled this past weekend, and you know what that means. Today is also William Shakespeare's birthday. And send him many years of sunshine days. I try to quote Shakespeare every day. As you like it. Sometimes I only get to say the or as Shakespeare quotes. I'm Dave Lloyd, a member of the Green Sanctuary Committee, and our readers today are Charlie Fisher, Karen McDowell, Lisa Heckler, Jean Schaefer, and Suzanne Williams. Our music is provided by Jamie Passman and the Celebration Singers, led by Julia Beckman. Please place your electronic devices in worship mode now. If you're new here or visiting, please join us for coffee and snacks downstairs after the service. Grab a green mug so we know to greet you. There's always a lot going on around the church, and you can read all about it in News and Notes, which arrives in your inbox every Friday. If you'd like to receive news and notes, you can go to the church's website, www.hinsdaleunitarian.org, and click on the Connect button at the top of the homepage, or talk to the friendly people at our visitors table in the living room at the back of church, and we can get your email address. How long does something have to happen before it becomes a venerable old tradition? Well, this is the 16th year that we've been celebrating Beltane at the church, with time off only in the plague years. And this year, Beltane will be next Sunday, April 30th at noon. We'll have a pageant on the changing of the seasons with the Green Man, the Snow Queen, and flower children. Food and drink, music, and dancing the maypole. Next Sunday after church. Bring your friends. And speaking of venerable old traditions, next Sunday is also the vegan bake sale. Bring your vegan treats and bring cash so you can take some home. Hey, you need something to eat at Beltane, so we got you covered. And watch for the plant sale, the annual plant sale, which is coming up shortly. Read about it in News and Notes. In 2 weeks, on Saturday, May 6th, we will enjoy a wildflower walk at Bemis Woods Forest Preserve. Starting at noon, we'll tour a woodland where carpets of wildflowers provide food and homes for all sorts of pollinators and other wildlife, and peace and beauty for people like you and me. And learn about how that space has been restored from a dark, tangled thicket to beautiful, light, open space. Talk to me for details or check next Friday's News and Notes. That's next Saturday, or 2 Saturdays from now, May 6th. The Welcoming Congregation Committee will be inviting all members and friends to participate in a survey that will help inform their efforts as we are working on renewing our Welcoming Congregation status. So, what is the Welcoming Congregation Committee? It's the group that guides us in enhancing our work on issues pertaining to our LGBTQ folks and bringing that work into the wider community. So when you see the survey, I'm not sure if it came out in News and Notes because I haven't had a chance to read it. I apologize. But it's either this week or next week. There will be hard copies as well, so please do the survey.
There are hard copies on the visitors.
There will be right now hard copies on the visitors desk. So if you like pen and paper better than electrons, it's right there. Our minister, Beth Johnson, created the outline for today's service. And she based it on the book, Active Hope. Active Hope is about becoming active participants in the process of moving toward our hopes and where we can, realizing them. Hope has at least a couple of meanings. One is hopefulness, optimism, where our preferred outcome seems reasonably likely to happen. And we all sort of know that right now it's hard to be hopeful. There are so many issues, environmental and social justice and crime and war and economy. If we require the kind of hope that's spoken as hopefulness, optimism, before we commit ourselves to action, our response gets blocked. Another meaning for hope is desire. Desire for the kind of future we hope for, the kind of world we long to see so much it hurts. It is this kind of hope that starts our journey. It is this kind of hope that's called active hope. And one of the authors of Active Hope is Joanna Macy. She has been a social, psychological, ecological advocate, preacher, counselor for years and years and years. She's in her 90s. And I just started reading this book to prepare for today. And what we hope to do in the near future, no, what we plan to do in the near future, is to have a number of sessions where we take apart the book and go through chapter by chapter and go through its messages. It's one of those books that's ideally suited for sitting around with a group, a book group or a study group or a small group ministry. There are separate chapters, and each chapter contains talking points to yourself, talking points in a discussion, activities to go through. What sort of activity can we do? How to get our heads right about today's world, today's crises, in the face of a difficulty having the kind of hope that's optimism. So I'll talk about that a little bit more, but I just want to introduce the book a little bit right now. Active hope is a practice, like Tai Chi or gardening. It's not a thing. There are 3 key steps. We start from where we are by taking a clear view of reality. We identify what we hope for in terms of the direction we'd like things to go in. And the feelings and the emotions and the values that we hope to see expressed in the world. And then we take steps to move ourselves or our situation in that direction. The focus is how we can strengthen our commitment and capacity to act so we can best play our part in the healing of the world. We know the world's been seriously damaged. We know it will continue to get worse in the near future. But one of the sessions in the book is about time, and in the time to come, there will be a healing in the world. And how do we start now to take part in that? The book talks about 3 stories. One is the great unraveling, the progressive decline and collapse of positive elements and systems. We see an upswing in hate crime, a loss of trust, lying politicians, people who deny the facts of the world, people who would turn this world backward. And it seems like you can't count on norms anymore. You know, back even a generation ago, a couple of decades ago, you would say, I don't like the ideas that those people are putting across. I don't like that form of government. The country is going the wrong way. But there is this sense of people are playing by the rules, they're bending the rules as much as they can, and you can see now there is a sense that the rules just don't matter. It's a great unraveling. And another story is business as usual. There is this message that economic growth at the expense of the earth is always a good thing. That we need to keep building more, producing more, increasing our profits increasing numbers and size of everything. COVID-19 told us, reminded us, if we didn't already know, it's not sustainable, and it's not the only way. And the event and the period of time of COVID that we're still going through makes me think of after the Great Plague in the 1300s, where somewhere between a third and a half of the population of Europe died within a couple of years. So imagine if COVID didn't have 1 million Americans dying, but 100 million Americans dying. Imagine if 1 out of every 3 people you knew died. Imagine if your village was empty. There are records from after the Great Plague where they would do a census and they would count the population of this town. Some towns just vanished from the census entirely. That event created a complete upheaval in society, of course. Changed the economy tremendously. There were so few workers that the system of serfdom, the system where workers were tied to the land, who couldn't leave their job without permission of their boss. If they traveled to another town and said, "Hi, I'm Tom," they'd say, "Where are you from?" And they say, "Well, I mean," but the Lord would text the new owner and say, "You see anybody named Tom? Yeah, he's about so high. Yeah, send him back." That's how it worked. After the Great Plague, the agricultural owners needed so much labor that they had to just hire whoever they could. The English government passed wage laws, not minimum wages, but maximum wages. If you were a worker and you tried to collect more than that limit, it was against the law. You could be arrested. If you were an employer and tried to pay more than that, you could be arrested. It was against the law. And you know what? Nobody followed the law. The economic law is so much stronger than whatever Parliament or the king could do. We haven't lost a third of our population, but we can all feel that changes like that are happening. Just wages, right? Just, what is it, the quiet quitting? People not willing to work for those wages for that kind of job anymore. Employers, as usual, saying, "Oh, nobody wants to work." I read an article that nobody wants to work goes back more than 100 years. Every generation of employers says, "Oh, people don't want to work like they did." Yeah, they don't want to be whipped. They don't work 60 hours a week. They don't want to be on call 24/7. Things are changing. And the point of this session, the point of the book is, how do we take part in that? COVID-19 made us more aware of the unraveling that's going on. After the worst of the pandemic, a lot of people said, "Boy, that's not normal. We want to go back to normal. We want to go back to business as usual," but I think we all realized you can't. Business as usual was not sustainable. And the third story is the Great Turning, the epochal transition from the industrial growth society to the life-sustaining society. I don't think it's a dream, because they used to heat homes with coal, and they don't do it anymore. They used to heat homes with heating oil. That was an improvement over coal. They don't do it anymore. There are a lot of, they used to have horses pulling everything, and people going out at night and cleaning up the streets. They don't do that anymore. We are, as a species, adaptable. As a society, we need to have things become a disaster before we fix things. I think we can agree that we've hit the disaster stage. Things will start to change because that's how we are as humans. That is referred to in the book as the Great Turning. News of the Great Turning gets squeezed out by media focused on business as usual, focused on the disasters, the great unraveling. But there are signs out there. A great question to start the process of what we do is, what happens through you? We can't save the world, but we can change the world. Not, well, this happened, but not, will there be a change, but what are the steps that will need to take place for this to happen? How are each of us doing that? What are you, what am I, what are we all turning away from because we know it causes harm? Noting and appreciating the ways that great turning is already happening through us, both personally and collectively, is a starting point we need to build from. I'm editing. There are more than 1 million organizations, around the world working toward ecological sustainability and social justice. Yesterday was Earth Day. First Earth Day was 1970, over 50 years ago. Back then, people just chuckled, oh, these nice environmentalists, you know, they're all hippies, they were looking for the next cause. And now governments and big companies at least pay lip service to the idea of improving the environment, and there are millions of organizations trying to achieve it. I'll talk more about this in a little bit. Right now, we light our chalice, the symbol of our church and denomination. Got it. With these words. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, sustain, yeah, right. Oh. Karen? You? Oh, sure.
Can I get this out of here? Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
My hero. I got it. Good morning. Very short reading before our guided meditation. For those of you who know the author, Audre Lorde. This is called Caring for Myself. And I think that as the morning goes along, you'll see a little bit better what she has in mind. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. I didn't quite understand that. I hope in another 45 minutes it'll make more sense to me. This is a heavy topic today, so let us take a moment to be kind to our own bodies by entering into a moment of calm contemplation and relaxation. You've silenced your devices. Be sure you set them aside. They won't miss you. Sit comfortably as you wish, and throughout this time, focus on your deep, slow breathing, in through the nose and out through the mouth. You'll likely find it natural to close your eyes. Let's begin. Breathe in and out. As you breathe, slowly lower your head and circle a few times to one side and around. Keep breathing deeply. Reverse the direction. Return your head to an upright position. Breathe. Now release all the tension from your face. Move your eyebrows, your nose, your mouth. Maybe you'll yawn. Relax your tongue and your jaw. Breathe. Roll your shoulders a couple of times in one direction. Breathe a couple of times in the other direction. May you savor moments of beauty. May you hold in your thoughts the preciousness of the earth, which is our home and sustains all living things. Final breath. Thus, with our minds and muscles reminded to relax, let us now return to this peaceful place of fellowship and inspiration.
Please rise in body or spirit and sing our opening hymn, number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Right now is regularly our time for all ages. We don't have any kidlets in the room today, so the rest of the service will be a time for some ages. The first step of the process of active hope is called coming from gratitude. Are people grateful because they're happy? Or does gratitude make people happy? I had a friend in college who said, it's easy to be an optimist if things happen to you that are good. I read about an experiment where they had the group of people keep gratitude journals and record events that they felt thankful for. Every day, write in your gratitude journal. And it worked. With all the tests and measures of happiness, by the end of a month, people responded and recorded that they were happier, just from that simple exercise. It wouldn't be a bad idea for each of us, each evening, ask ourselves, what happened today that I'm glad about? What a good way to go to bed. And you can journal it, you can write it on pen and paper, use electrons to record it, but write it down. So not only do you have that recharge at the end of the day, but at the end of the month you can say, wow, that's pretty good. Experiencing gratitude is a learnable skill. It's something you can practice. It's something you can work on. Gratitude does a number of things. It promotes a sense of well-being. As I said, experiment proves when you recognize good things, when you show gratitude to yourself, to your friends and family, the world, it increases your well-being. Gratitude builds trust and generosity. When you appreciate what others do and you express it to them, you will seek ways to reciprocate. You will find yourselves coming closer to those other people because you've thanked them, because you're actively remembering and thinking and expressing the good things they've done to you. And when people do good things for you, what do you want to do? You want to do good things back. It builds a sense of community. Gratitude is my favorite antidote to consumerism. There is emotional distress that arises from a preoccupation with possessions and appearance. It's a psychological virus that infects our thinking, and it's intentionally spread by people who produce stuff for us to consume. It is the toxic belief that happiness is based on how we look and what we have. If you acknowledge the gifts that you already have, if you have gratitude for how you are and how you look and all the things you have, the pressure to go out and get more stuff, to change how you look so that you match some photoshopped photo, seeps out like toxins. It's all from gratitude. I have two models. I have a number of models for behavior, but I'm thinking of two right now. One is Winston Churchill. And after World War II, somebody asked him, well, what was the worst part of the war? And Winston Churchill said, I loved every minute of it. And it's true. It was the culmination of a life's goal. It was his mission, his dream to lead his country through a time of great crisis. He was thankful that he had the opportunity. Any day, any month, the country that he was trying to lead might be invaded and conquered. Or if they withstood that, any day, if his government, his people made mistakes, he could be thrown out of office and his political career would be over. They were bombing London. He could die at any minute. And he was thankful for the opportunity to be right there. Another model for my behavior is S. Terry Lloyd, who was my mother. And in my last conversation with her, I said, Mom, how are you doing? She said, I can hardly walk. I'm in pain all the time. I have trouble breathing. But I'm so lucky. My mother practiced and embodied gratitude her whole life. And I think a little of it rubbed off on me. Let's take a break and hear our celebration singers.
Our next reading is by Maya Angelou, Let Gratitude Be the Pillow. Let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your prayer, and let faith be the bridge you build to overcome evil and welcome good. Look around. What do you see and feel? Now look inward. Scan your memory for something that has happened in the past 24 hours or recently that you are pleased about. It doesn't need to be anything big, just something that makes you think, I'm glad that happened. Close your eyes and imagine that you are experiencing that moment again. Notice any colors, tastes, sounds, smells, sensations in your body. Notice how you feel in yourself. Give thanks. Who or what helped this moment to happen? Was anyone or anything else involved? Give thanks for that moment.
The next section of Active Hope is called Honoring Our Pain for the World. Pain is a normal physiological response to trauma. If you, ow, that hurts. Well, don't do that again. Fear is a normal emotional response to a threat. Pretty much everybody is afraid of snakes. Because 1,000,000 years ago, anybody who wasn't afraid of snakes died early and didn't have any children. That's how evolution works. Anger is a normal emotional response to wrongdoing. Despair is a normal emotional response to ongoing suffering. In the book, there's a description of a study, people filling out questionnaires. And in the room where they're filling out the questionnaires, smoke starts coming into the room. If the people were alone, they got up and left the room. If there were other people there, and typically there would be actors there for the one person filling out the questionnaires, and they're all, if the other people stayed, then 2/3 of the people tested would stay and complete the questionnaire. Even if it's so smoky that it's difficult to see, and some subjects were coughing or rubbing their eyes, 2/3 would stay and do it. We do things because it's the right thing to do, and we judge around us what's right. What keeps us from acting to change the world? The book talks about 7 reasons. 4 are related to business as usual. 1, I don't believe it's that dangerous. The next, it isn't my role to sort this out. Someone else has a responsibility. The next, I don't want to stand out from the crowd. I don't want to be one of those people. And another is, this information threatens my commercial or political interests. I would do this, but it's not going to work out. And 3 reasons are related to the great unraveling, the breakdown in systems. 1, it's so upsetting that I prefer not to think about it. Or I feel paralyzed. I don't know what to do. Or there's no point in doing anything. It doesn't make any difference. How many of us have had those feelings? In what the book calls work that reconnects, it talks about a feedback loop. If you're on a course and it's the wrong course, you change things and you get back on course. And then if you start to drift again, you get that feedback and you change course again. There's a sense of, I don't want to study my feelings about the world and these crises. If I open the door to those feelings, I'll be plunged to a place that's so low I don't think I'll be able to get out. When we touch into our depths, though, we find out that the pit is not so deep as we thought. I told this story many times before. Long ago, I had a boss who said, I never tell my clients what's going on. It's my job to do the worrying. And I thought, even as a young lawyer, that's crazy. I tell people everything that's going to happen, even the really bad ones, so there's no surprise. And at the end of the process, they say, well, that wasn't that bad. If you look deep into yourself, how do you feel about this? What is the pain? Once you see, okay, I feel that, I understand that this is going to happen. I talked a few months ago about things are getting worse, but if we accept that, then we can figure out how bad are they going to get, and what do we do to start the healing when they get bad. When we hear ourselves speak what we already know, it helps us to figure out how do we change that. When we share with others, without going into blame or avoidance or despair, if we share with others, this is how I feel, how do you feel? This is how bad things really are. What do you think? And there are actions that we can start before going out and changing things. Just breath meditation, as we've been doing here. We honor our pain, we recognize it and study it and hold it and say, okay, this is where I'm coming from. What do I do next?
You Who Let Yourselves Feel by Rainier Maria Rilke. You who let yourselves feel, enter the breathing that is more than your own. Let it brush your cheeks as it divides and rejoins behind you. Blessed ones, whole ones, you where the heart begins. You are the bow that shoots the arrows, and you are the target. Fear not the pain. Let its weight fall back into the earth, for heavy are the mountains, heavy the seas. The trees you planted in childhood have grown too heavy. You cannot bring them along. Give yourselves to the air, to what you cannot hold. Look around. What do you see and feel? Now look inward. What is it about the world that brings pain? Think in terms of sentences that start like these. When I think about the condition of the world, I feel. Some concerns I have include. Some feelings that come are. What I do with this feeling is.
We enter this space bringing with us joys, concerns, challenges, and blessings. If you have something either weighing or dancing on your heart this morning, you are invited to come up to light a candle. If you wish, you can say a name, a word, or a short phrase to share your intention. Remember, we're being broadcast over the wireless, so first names might be most appropriate. I'm going to start. I'm sending out good wishes to our Minister Reverend Beth Johnson. I hinted she does have COVID. I talked to her Wednesday night. She feels terrible, no surprise, but it didn't seem like life-threatening. So, for Beth.
We don't know what we're doing up here.
Hi, I'm David. Lighting a candle for my daughter Lily. She graduates from the University of Illinois in Champaign in 3 weeks with a double major in astronomy and physics. And she's got a job when she graduates.
Right.
I'm Darren, and I'm happy to share we have a lot of people watching on YouTube. We now have 175 YouTube subscribers. Welcome to all of you out there. I don't know where the camera is, but we've also been blessed with having new visitors almost every week for the last 3 months. And today we welcome Megan. If you are inclined to wave, Megan, that's fine. If you want to stay quiet, that's fine too. Welcome, Megan. And Shelley has been back with us several weeks in a row. Welcome again, Shelley. And Scott, who is a neighbor, who is visiting us for the first time today after driving by our church for many years. So welcome, Scott. Thank you.
And we'll light 3 final candles, one for the joys and concerns that might be too private or too tender to share, one for our community that shares those and sustains us, and one for our leaders that they remember where they live, who they work for. No, it's a new thing. The next step in active hope is called seeing with new eyes. And it mentions 4 things to consider. Self. Talk a little bit about sharing and about expanding the feeling and the size of self. If you see little children playing with toys and things, mostly, not always, mostly, children will share with each other. They might have a favorite thing that they're not going to let go. But especially, I think many of us have seen these, there's a child sitting next to another child, and the first one has a big piece of cake and the other has just a little tiny few crumbs. Most times the child will, without being told, share. It is a natural, sharing is in our DNA. Again, let's talk about evolution. 1 million years ago, anybody who didn't share with their fellows was sent out, and they didn't live too long. Sharing is what made human societies work. The extreme individualism of industrialized countries is so well established that some regard it as our natural state. But it's partly because the ruling elites have been at war with community and sharing for most of my life, maybe for much longer than that. You're on your own is the watchword, as opposed to we're all in this together. Is the opposite of selfishness altruism? Altruism is defined as doing something for someone else without any hope of return. It's not altruism when family members help each other or when parents sacrifice for children. I read some political philosopher back in college that, parents take care of their children when they're weak and need help because they're banking on having their kids taken. I laughed too. And circles get wider. There's the circle of the family. There's the circle of the community. When people do work, other than working in the office and doing stuff and maintaining things, when people do work like standing here, like cleaning, like landscaping, like making everything around this church happen, do we think, okay, this is going to pay me this much money? Okay, the church is going to do this for me? No. Our family circle has expanded at least as large as the community, and we want to share It's in our DNA. From community to our town. I do things, I think a lot of us do things for our town without hope of pay. You know, look at all the volunteer organizations that towns and villages and cities have, and people spend lots and lots of time doing that. It's because the circle of community has reached the whole town. And from the town to the country, people sacrifice for their country. And to the culture. You hear about Western culture, Eastern culture. We sacrifice for our culture if our circle is big enough. And then the circle can expand to all of human society. And the circle can expand to the web of life. Another word in this idea of seeing with new eyes is looking at power. If we see that as power held by only those at the top, we have a certain relation to it. People feel powerless. Power is viewed as a commodity. I've heard knowledge is power, you know, so people keep knowledge. In big organizations, nobody knows what's going on because the people at the top gather all the knowledge to themselves. How foolish. Power generates conflict. Power fosters mental rigidity. Power becomes suspect. People with power you look at, and people think of them as passionate and clear and determined and brave, but they also think of them as lonely, dishonest, and disliked. When power is so separated from the rest of us, that's what power does. But the book talks about a new thinking about power, power of inner strength, the power that we all have, power arising out of cooperation with others. How much power would we all have if we all acted together? The power of small steps whose impact becomes evident only when we step back. The power of acting when you don't need to know the outcome. The power to overcome that doubt and that sense of, it doesn't matter because I don't think it's going to happen. The power of doing an action, not knowing what will happen. Back when the Blackhawks were winning all their championships, what I noticed them doing, and I am not a sports expert, just like to watch when they're winning, sorry. But what I noticed was all these other teams had these really intricate ways of moving the puck down the ice, and the Blackhawks seemed to have this shoot the thing down there and then swarm on the puck, because if the puck's in front of their goal, you're more likely to score than if it's back here. It seems sort of chaotic, but the idea is we don't know what's going to happen, but we know we're going to be in a better place if we move there. And there's great power in switching from what can I gain, what will be the result, to what can I do, what can I give. And when we draw on the strengths of others, when we work together, you know that two people can do much more than twice the work of one. Most times, I had a math teacher say, you know, it's one of those story problems. If one boy can do a job in a half an hour, how long will it take two boys? He said, an hour and a half, they'll goof off. So other than teenage boys, when we work together, and there is great power in remembering a time when you made a difference, because that can carry you forward. And then another aspect of seeing with new eyes is community. And I already made comments in the context of self, they're very similar. When your community expands, your power is greater, and your self-esteem and self-awareness become greater. And then time, the last part of this is time. There's an example in the book. When the new college at Oxford University was built in 1379, So yes, I do bring history into this. The college foresters planted oak trees so that they could replace the timbers of that church in the 200 or 300 or 400 years when they knew that they might need them. We think all the time about right now, and everything around us trains us to do that. The short-term benefits always seem to outweigh the long-term costs. We don't see disaster coming from far away. We expect or we export problems to the future. The author talks about an experiment in time travel. She did a course about nuclear programs and about managing nuclear waste, and she put up a sign that said Chernobyl Time Travel Project 2088, because this is from 1988. What would we do, how would we be if we could time travel? If we could travel to 100 years from now and look back, what would they write to us and say? What would we fix if we could know what those people were going to be like 100 years from now? And speaking of time travel, our ancestors are allies too. Can we live differently? People lived differently in the past. They walked everywhere. There's nothing to walk 5 or 10 miles to visit a friend. All sorts of muscle power was used. People died of cholera at age 30, so we don't want to go back to those golden days. But the new way to live can resemble in a lot of ways old ways. Imagine letters from future descendants that say, how much did you do about war, social injustice, environmental degradation? A letter from a future descendant. We have songs and stories about the great turning, about how things changed. But we can't tell. How did it get started? What did you do? Where did you find the strength to make all those changes? Imagine what your response to those future descendants would be.
There has been some confusion by Dick Iden. Does the edge of earth begin under our dancing feet, where seeds break towards light, where everything we know is rooted in the 5 senses that we've identified so far? Or above cirrus ice crystals, which sit high above the clouds, leaving only our space junk to litter the outer atmosphere, another possible edge merging as it does with interplanetary nothingness? A relative term, of course, and largely untrue, like the notion of solid ground or deserts as nothing but hot sand, worthless, uncivilized outlands, where the Milky Way galaxy spreads itself across the night sky and meteor showers fall into Earth's fiery embrace while we continue dancing around the edge of what we know. Look around. What do you see and feel? Now look inward. Think of a time in your life when you did something important and good happened because of it. Because of what you did or what you said. Recapture that scene and play it back for yourself.
Thank you. The ultimate portion of the ideas put forth in Active Hope is called Going Forth, and I'm only going to tease it today. It involves things like dreams and visions for the future. The idea, and we're familiar with this from brainstorming, what comes before how. There are no bad ideas. Don't come up with reasons why something will work when you talk about what needs to change. It's about choices. It's about imagining and vision. So I promise that we'll go into greater detail, but let me ask, the book Active Hope has a lot of, it's well set up for small group ministry, for having meetings and discussing. There are little exercises after each. Without committing to anything, how many people think you might be interested in going to something like that, either live or on Zoom? Okay. Everyone who has raised your hand will now get ads on Facebook. But it's not just our wish and it's not just our hope. We're planning to do exactly that. I think it'll be very interesting and very useful to all of us. And gee, I wish, I forgot to bring a copy of the book so I could show it to you. I wish there was somebody here who had a copy. Oh, look. And it will be available at the fair trade table. This is the time of the service where we invite each other to share our resources, to continue the work of this church. Let's, oh, see, we skipped. Let's say these words together. This church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another around us and with all the world. Thank you in advance for your generosity.
Words entitled On the Path Ahead by Gloria Anzaldúa. On the path ahead, you see otro puente, another bridge, a footbridge with mission planks, broken rails. You walk toward it, step onto the threshold, and freeze, right hand clutching the past, left hand stretching to the unknown. Behind, the world admonishes you to stick to the old and tried, dominant paradigm, the secure relationships within it. Adelante, ahead. La Yorna whispers, you have a task, a calling. Only you can bring forth your potential.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, everyone who's read today. Please join us in these words as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of its truth, the warmth of our community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world. And please rise and body your spirit to join our final hymn, Blue Boat Home, number 1064 in your teal hymnal and projected on the screen.